welcome to another workshop video log. Now this week we got something a little bit different. We've got here the Royal Enfield. Now we've had a few Royal Enfields in the workshop, but nothing as old as this. We've been working closely with the new ones. Now this was the Lana bike back in the 60s. Now this bike is, I think it's registered about 67. It was a 250, so it was Lana legal. Now at the time, the choice of bikes were things like a Tiger Cub or BSA C15. Tiger Cub being 200, C15 being 250, but the Royal Enfield Continental GT was a 250 with a 5-speed gearbox. Now if we look at the bike, it is in a Cafe Racer trim. Starting with the front of the bike, we have what we called in the day, these are called bacon slicers. Now this was a common practice to put these on the bigger bikes. So if you saw someone with, I don't know, a BSA 650, it would be a Gold Star, an RGS, they'd put these on, and Tritons, it just made it look sporty. Bikes fitted with clip-ons, so it means that you can see here on the top yoke, there is a place for higher bars. But as we said with Gold Stars, this has now clip-ons. This was a standard fitment. There would have been a fly screen on the front of this. The fittings are here, so it had a tiny little screen. But what a pretty bike. Chrome headlamp, ammeter, very attractive. The brake on this, just looking at it, was pretty good brake. Single acting shoe, but good. Getting back to the engine now, we've got a cable here, which is our tacho drive. So we've got a rev counter, as well as a speedo. So it's a sporty appearance bike, and when you look at this, it does look like it's been built for speed. So this was very attractive to, at the time, you could ride these at 16. So when you got your provisional license and you're riding something like this on the road, you were up there with the big boys on their big bikes, really. So we got a fiberglass tank. Now this was standard issue. And in those days, there wasn't an issue with the ethanol fuel. So you can see here, we have problems with this tank. This one's been leaking. Someone has done some repair work. And what's happened is the fiberglass is blistered under the paint and lifted. So we can repair this tank, but the customer has actually popped another tank in today to me. So I probably will line these tanks with a sealer. But as we've been talking about ethanol fuel, you can still get some fuels that haven't got the ethanol in, and you certainly don't want E10 in these bikes. So looking at the bike, it's come in for recommission, has been dripping petrol onto the case, that's why it's stained. This cover is a fiberglass cover, it's got the screws missing, so we need to recommission it. Now, it's spoken to me about the selector and the gearbox. Now, they did have an issue with sometimes losing the fifth gear, so we need to have a look at that cassette maybe, but I'm hoping to get it running first, and maybe it just needs clutch adjustment and just a thorough going through. The seat on here isn't the standard seat it would have had. Someone's put a Cafe Racer seat on with the hump, but it does actually look quite nice with the rest of the bike. So yeah, when you look at it, it's pretty. Round here, I don't know if you can get around this side, but you can see we've got a swept back exhaust pipe here, and we've got a megaphone silencer. So I imagine she's quite loud. These were fairly high compression, and this certainly has got good compression. Gear changes on the conventional side for a British bike, so on the right hand side. But yeah, and if you look at the dials up here, it's nicely done. This is not unsimilar to when we looked at the Royal Enfield Classic 350. So this is a nice bike to do for a change. You know, you always work on the big bikes, but sometimes the little bikes are quite fun. The guy that had this had one in the day when he was 16. I think he was 15 actually when he had it. So he's reminiscing on the past. So to put this on the road for him, I think it'd be a good bike to do. So I'm going to leave you that one now, and next time you see it, we'll hopefully have some work in progress, and we can show you what we found wrong and how we put it right. Okay, another BSA, another 650. This one we got in here actually is a Lightning. It's actually the same year as my Thunderbolt, 67. It's partially dismantled already. The customer picked this bike up. He had much lower bars on, so he's obviously taken some bits off to put higher bars on, found out he needed longer cables. Now this is as far as he's got with it. He's fitted the throttle cables, and because he'd left it a little while, he wanted me to put it back together for him and just check over it. So what we have to do is just make sure that the slides are correctly adjusted on the carbs. We'll put the clutch cable back in. There's a few bits that have gone astray, but we can get around that, like the clutch cable should have an adjuster up here. We'll find one for him. But yeah, so we're going to put that back together. These were nice actually. We've spoken about my Thunderbolt, which is a single carb version, and these are a really good bike because you don't get any oil leaks on these. They are so good to ride, and you know, this one isn't the American spec one, and I'll show you a few of the bits on the bench. So this is all in the cardboard box when it turned up, the tank. So it has a much bigger tank. It's a UK spec bike, so we have a much larger tank. So what we got on here, we got where the customer's taken bits apart. So we've got a container there full of parts. We got the outer cover on the Kickstarter side. We've got the two side panels, and we've got a combination of cables. This one, again, has got electronic ignition. And people quite often mention about electronic ignition. This now I think is a Wassel one, the same as I've got. Easy to install. It does make these bikes much easier to live with because you've only got that unit. You haven't got two sets of points to install and to maintain and keep it adjusted correctly. So it's quite a good upgrade to make actually, to install electronic ignition. This is unfortunate, he's got a dink on the pipe, and I think when he was bringing the two bikes over, his Continental GT, it fell against here. But we can swap these pipes around from left to right and you won't see this. And I wasn't aware when I had my bike that this is standard issue, this pouch. This is the toolbox side of the bike. This is a tool pouch, because on this side we just have to have the fiberglass cover. So it's nice. It's all quite true. So I think, you know, it'd be quite nice if we get this one done in the week and you can hear it running. So that's that then, and now come back to the Scott. Now, yesterday we were up at Stafford Motorcycle Show, and had a great day up there. A long way to go. People know what the traffic can be like, and it was terrible. But I managed to pick up a main jet, because we want to go up from 160 to 170, so I picked up the jet for it. Because this now is going to be doing a fairly big run, it's going to be doing this run up in Scotland, I wanted to upgrade it to having a proper brake switch. So we're going to have a brake pull switch, which I picked up a universal one, so we can clamp it to the frame tube, put that down there, and we'll just locate the spring here. So when the brake is applied going forwards, it will stretch the spring, open the plunger, and make the rear light work. So that's something we're installing the week. We've got to get new cables made for the carburetor, the choke and the throttle cable, but we'll put the jet in and we'll probably bolt the carb back on now anyway. So a little bit more done to this, but I've been told that the oil pump is on its way back. That's now been finished. So once that pump is reinstated, we've put the oil lines on, then hopefully we can get the magneto. And once the mag's back, we'll get it timed up, and then it's ready to start the engine. So then we're going to run it up as a solo, make sure it's right, then we'll reattach the sidecar. And then we'll make sure that's adjusted correctly, and do some short runs, then we'll do some filming with that. And hopefully that will all be done before Christmas, hopefully finished. So that's where we are at the moment. But yeah, going back to Stafford yesterday, we had a good chance to see a lot of race bikes. The Bonhams auction motorcycles were on display and was sold, and some interesting bikes were actually passing through hands yesterday. So anyone who's never been, I recommend you go. It's worth the journey to see some machinery. Also the startup area saw some race bikes, very interesting, and some of the old riders. And some of the old riders have actually come back to still racing, and that would be another little story for another day. Okay, remember Marcus? Well, Marcus had the RGS, the Rocket Gold Star, which was one of his dad's bikes. And the story, well, if any of you remember, was the fact that his dad passed away and he had a collection of bikes, never got the time, never got round to having the bikes recommissioned. They were purchased and never rode. So my job was to recommission the RGS. So we had it down here, we went through the bike, put new tyres on, had the engine semi-apart, top end off, and several parts fitted. It was running okay, and I said to Marcus, your bike is done. And he said, well, I'll come down and I would like to ride it. I said, fine. I said, but I think you'd be better off if you ride it here, take it back in the van, take it home. Because we all know that if you haven't ridden a British bike, better to do short runs, get used to it, and just let it settle down. But you always need to put a spanner over things. Everyone knows that after they've been apart. Anyway, he turns up here, and we've covered the bike up for him in the this area outside my workshop, and he was blown away. Removed the cover, and he was gobsmacked. A little bit emotional, which I can understand, because you know he wanted to do this originally with his dad, to ride the bikes together. So fulfilled the dream for him. He can ride it on his own and think about his dad. So after showing how to start the bike, bearing in mind it got very high compression, did struggle a little bit, and with some footage of that, he said to me, he said, yeah, I come out of you and just keep under your wing and get used to it. So we took him out for about, I don't know, about an hour I suppose, rode locally, come back. He said, yeah, I'm happy to ride the bike down to the Solent, Leon Solent. So that is quite a long way from here, and I was okay about it, but if anyone's worked on a bike, you always feel, oh, first run out, it's a long way to go. So we rode down towards Portsmouth, and a friend was going to take it from there in a van back up to Banbury. So you're going down south, then you're going back up, you know, in the van, which is fine. But he decided, after riding the bike from here down to his friends, he said, I really enjoyed the experience. I don't want you to take the bike home for me, I'm going to ride it home now. So he rode that bike all the way back to Banbury. He'd done a distance of 180 miles on a bike he's never ridden before. Clip-ons, rear sets, everyone knows they're uncomfortable, best of times. Now Marcus is a young chap, and he's you know, a clever guy, and he's a pilot, so nothing phases him. And he phoned me up to say that he got home okay. He mentioned that lights aren't particularly powerful. I said, well, they're not, because they're 6 volt, and we all know that, and most of us won't even use a bike of that age in the dark because the lights aren't very powerful. Well, not to go any real distance. And yeah, it never missed a beat, and he enjoyed the experience, and you know, he's living with the bike now, and I haven't heard from him for quite some time, but he's so chuffed to have his dad's bike on the road. So that is a long way to actually ride a bike that you've never ridden before, and an old British bike, 180 miles. It does prove that these old bikes will do the distance. And I think sometimes we do get a bit afraid to use them because we think we're going to break down. I think that's something that's inbuilt to people when they get a bit older. You tend to get a comfort zone thinking, oh, I don't want to use that because if something goes wrong, I don't want the aggravation. But there you go, it's all put back together, didn't miss a beat. And I suppose the worst scenario is that you break down, you just get recovery. That's the logical way to look at it. But yeah, you really enjoyed the experience. So that's that one done, and a happy customer, and I think we've got another bike to do for him at a later stage. Right, today we're going to talk about AJS. But this is not, I'll be honest with you, straight away people are going to say this is not a classic bike. It isn't a classic bike. It's an AJS, and for people who don't know, these are now made in China. So 125, but these are built to a British spec. Now these bikes are an entry level into an affordable bike for commuting. They do various models. We've got the Scrambler version here, and I think they do two versions of this. They do the Cadwell, which is a more like cafe racer version, which we'll show you later on the channel. These are very affordable for under £3,000. It's 125. I mean, that's a lot of motorcycle, and the build quality is good. So we've got these bikes here, and we've got two girl riders are going to be riding these. They're quite new to riding, so I think it would be good. The idea is to actually, I think we need to promote really motorcycling to the younger generation now, because let's face it, we're all getting older, and I'm of an age now, I'm in my mid-60s. We want to encourage people to actually come into the classic world. Now, as I just mentioned just now, this isn't classic, no, but it's AJS. It's the badge name. What we're doing here today is showing these bikes are affordable. The other bike, which this is the Tempest, the Cadwell version, that looks like a little cafe racer. It sits in well with some old British bikes. It doesn't look out of place. And I think we need to encourage low power bikes for learners that are affordable, something they want to, you know, ride and enjoy. Not everyone wants a high power bike. Where can you use it anyway, basically? So I think a lot of people would buy something like this and they might actually move on to the classic world. And that's something we'll talk about in a moment, because we've got the 500 here today, which is a Matchless. It's 1959. We're going to put some younger riders on that and just get the experience that we get. Now, I think a lot of the time now, people put off the old bikes because they're so worried they're going to break down. They are quite, we're going to talk about this again later, but they are quite basic in the terms of maintenance and basics that you have to understand. I think people buy retro modern because you purchase something like this and you know you're going to get a 2-year warranty. Anything goes wrong with it goes back to the dealership. You buy an old classic and you're taken to a shop and they say, no, we don't work on those. So it's down to you having that classic and doing your own maintenance. Now, something we're going to talk about later on. Don't be put off an old classic, because there's lots of literature. By joining the club, there's a lot of help out there. But we're going to show you some of the main things that you need to understand. Understanding something, how it needs to work, is a crucial part, because like sometimes people mention that a clutch doesn't work properly. It's purely down to adjustment on the cable sometimes. It's got too much free play, so when they pull the clutch in, they try to put it into gear, it won't go in. The gears are grating. Or it's over adjusted, it starts to slip. It's just basic things really, and I think we ought to cover this for younger riders. And a lot of girls, you know, why shouldn't they ride bikes? You know, I think it's been dominated by guys for a long, long time. We do need some younger blood riding machinery now. If we don't encourage younger riders to ride the old stuff, what will happen is people of my age and a bit younger will stop riding those bikes and they won't get used anymore. So it's so important to encourage a younger audience. So that's what we're trying to promote really. But this is a great little bike, so we'll see how this goes and how it stands up. But I think when you look around this bike, you know, if you look at some of the features on it, we've got, you know, a sturdy bike. I mean, the build quality, okay, it's not, you know, it's not earth-shattering, but it's good. I mean, it is, you know, what it is for the price. I mean, we got, I don't know whether this, I don't think it's got any ABS on it, which is not important. It's just
it's linked.
It's linked. Oh, stand corrected. We've got linked brakes on here, so that means when you apply the front brake, the back brakes operate at the same time, which is a good thing. But it's just a 125, very basic engine, old design. But you look at the sort of ruggedness of it, you know, it is well put together. I think these would be a lot of fun to ride. Sometimes, as I said before, a bike like this, You can chuck it on a trailer. You can chuck it in the back of your van. And say if you're going on holiday, you know, it's small enough to chuck on the back of a camper probably. Or, you know, and also the audience, I've mentioned many times now, you're a little bit older and it's light, you know, and we had a guy here earlier that is actually, he's owned a load of bikes and he's the owner of that Continental GT. He jumped on this and rode it around the yard and he was actually well impressed with it. He said, puts a smile on your face. So sometimes a little cheap bike can be a lot of fun. So I think sometimes, you know, we all get discouraged with something that's small. Oh, I want a bigger bike. Do you? Why don't you look at something a little bit cheaper? Look at something like this, you know. We'll see how this goes, and we can give you a bit of a report, see how the girls get on with these bikes. Hi Lana, nice to have you here today. You're here to actually ride later on and have a quick look over the Matchless, and I think that's going to suit you really well. Before we do that, I want to talk about your experience of your bike, which I know is a little bit special. This is Dnieper, but it's no ordinary Dnieper. It's got a slightly different engine than the standard.
Yeah.
So
it's a 1989 machine with a 1978 R80 engine in it, which is slightly bigger than it would have had. I think it came with an R60. Yeah.
Am I right in saying these were like a war issue bike, like from the Second World War, very similar build?
Originally, yes. This obviously isn't, because it's newer.
But they haven't really changed a great deal, have they, really? They still have like that big balanced mudguard, very tough build, still retains the rubber seat and pillion, which is like a sprung saddle seat on the back, but built like a gun, isn't it? Strong.
This is, yeah.
But this one isn't hasn't got the drive shaft to the back wheel. See, this one hasn't got that, has it?
Not on the chair, no.
No.
So it's a single wheel drive.
Am I right in saying they have that with the Cossack?
They have two-wheel drive, yeah. If the chair's on the right, then they can take it off that.
So you've had this how long?
About a year and a half.
So as far as you know, the engine was fitted because an upgrade, or it got a bit tired, or?
No idea, actually.
Okay.
So just, I guess someone liked it.
And you maintain it yourself?
Yeah, for the most part.
So you're hands-on with spanners?
Yeah, I like spanners.
This is what we're trying to actually encourage, is that, like yourself, you like the older bikes, and that's why we're going to put you on the Classic, on the Matchless, and see how you feel about it. And it's all about like maintaining that type of bike. And with an old bike, it's a love affair, really. That's how I explain it, because
I thought it was more like a battle. I hope more of a battle.
It can be a battle.
But yeah, a bit love-hate relationship.
Because you're actually hands-on, you become, you know, very aware of what's going on with the bike. Modern bikes, you don't do that. You tend to turn a key, press a button. You might clean it. The older bikes, you have to maintain. So you do get more involved with the older machinery.
Yeah.
So
you have to, otherwise it doesn't go, does it?
It doesn't go. It doesn't. You know, it doesn't. It doesn't keep. It's not a safe to. Can you correct? I got lost in that bit there. Got lost in that bit.
Anything else to tell us about this?
It's got shiny valve caps.
Do you want to talk about like?
I'm proud of my shiny valve caps.
So we got ammo box on the back, got a spare wheel.
Well, the ammo box is actually supposed to have the battery in, and it's actually a fuse box.
Okay.
But it has a car battery in it at the moment, which is not ideal because.
Show us.
Yeah. So do you want me to just?
The battery.
So the chair itself is quite basic. Just takes a pillion. You've got storage in the back.
Well, apart from it's full of car battery at the moment. So this is on my list of things to do, is reinstate the battery that should be in this box that probably has a hairbrush in it and some fuses. You can look at the hairbrush if you like.
So we're running around with a battery probably about 3 times bigger than it needs to be.
Stickers, some rubbish, and yeah, so the battery should be in this side, fuses in the other side.
So anything on here that really stands out that people will be interested in? One thing I can see here, and you probably don't use that because you've got electric start. The
kickstart that breaks your ankle if you try and do it, because the chair was designed to be on the right-hand side. As it is, you haven't actually got room to get your foot down there without your ankle getting caught in between something. I have tried it. It wasn't pretty.
For people who don't know, BMWs, the Danipa, all these sort of bikes, they are shaft drive.
Yeah.
So there's no chain drive. So on the other side, you can see where we've got the donuts and we've got the shaft through here. This is the drive shaft here to the rear hub assembly, which drives the back wheel. Yeah, the R80, did you say it's the 80 engine this?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a good strong engine. I used to have an R80 as well, and yeah, airhead engines are brilliant.
Yep.
So reliable.
Needs valve clearances doing. That's also on my list of things to do.
But something you can do easily yourself, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I have the new gaskets and everything ready. Just have to get on and do it.
But you're not phased. You'll ride this and you'll take it up to Oxford, and you've done a lot of motorway stuff, and you're just happy just riding it.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's good. It's
And
good.
it makes people smile because you don't see them often.
No, you don't. That's very true. Well, another big thank you to the AJS Matchless Club for loaning us this G9 Matchless. Lana's going to be riding this for a couple of weeks, and we're just going to do a quick sort of presentation on, you know, the bike, things to check on it, obviously how to start it, and I think she's going to really enjoy it. This one actually is it's registered as a 59 bike, but it's not matching numbers, so the engine is probably a little bit earlier. But these bikes, it's crazy really, because they don't make the money they should. AJS Matchless were never looked upon as being the bike that my generation really wanted. You always went for the BSA or the Triumph. But this, I know up in Kettering where they have their shop, this was in the shop, and it was like, you know, before they worked on it, it was just best part of £3,000. Now what they've done for us is they've put some new silencers on, they've put some new levers on the bike, new tyres. So they spent a little bit of money on the bike, so it's going to be, you know, safe to ride now for the two girls, and Lana first, obviously. But I think, you know, for anyone that's looking for a classic bike, look at one of these. And I'll be honest with you, I've used it for 2 or 3 days for work, and I've done a few little jobs on it, but it's so smooth. It won't set anything alight, it's not over fast, but it's not always about speed. I mean, these old bikes will lug along all day long at 50, and that's quite a comfortable speed. So we're just going to go through the bike now with Lana. Basically on the handlebars we have this lever here, advance and retard. As Steve mentioned to me, you can leave it in a full advanced position. You don't need to touch that.
Okay.
On the other side we do have a choke lever. So a taut wire, the choke is pulled up, it's taken off, and that would be full choke. Now he did say to me, it really doesn't need any choke. You just need to tickle the carburettor. So round this side, we've got 2 taps, but this is the main tap. You've got reserve on the other side. You just push that on, and we just tickle the carburettor. Do it with this finger here. So once the fuel is coming out the top, just find compression, and it's fairly low compression, this one. It's not a folding kickstart. It doesn't bite back like the Gold Star. Fine compression, a little bit of throttle. Now when it's cold, it will tick over a little bit slow, but when it's warmed up, it'll come up. Now if you find, I'll show you now, that your tick over is a little bit slow. So in the mornings, if you're running the bike, it's stalling on you, just wind that up obviously. When it's got hot, you might find it's a bit fast, just bring it back down again. Got an AMC gearbox, and it's you've got an indicator on here. So first gear, it's actually between gears at the moment. Who rode it last left it between gears. But first is back here. Then we've got neutral, 1, 2, 3, forward gears. So we've got got first, back, second forward, third, fourth. Very smooth, light clutch. Like I say, it's quite happy to ride along at 50, 55. But it's a very, very smooth engine. I mean, when you rev the engine, it's such a paces, there's no vibration.
It's nice now.
I'm going to stop it, I'm going to get Lana to start it. On stopping this bike, we haven't got a button on the handlebars.
Okay.
On the Magneto, there's a button on the mag, and that just sorts the mag out. And that's it.
I like that button.
I'm going to let you
That's
start
my favourite
it.
bit so far.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
That works.
I like the button.
So we just want to see how you get on with starting it.
Okay.
So it won't need any tickling now. That should
It just
just
needs
go
kicking.
straight away. Yeah, you'll be happy
And it's
kicking
in
this
a
one.
false neutral already, is it?
Yeah, I'm going to make sure. I'm going to bring that back because
Cancel clutch.
to spin the back wheel. There you go.
Okay. So just stomp.
Yeah,
it.
compression. Just
Well,
kick
which
it.
leg are we doing with stomping? Where is compression? I don't even know where it is.
Just up. Yeah, it's in neutral.
It didn't work. I can't remember which legs I go with.
You might find you're better sitting on the bike.
Yeah, I might do. Okay.
Actually,
Fall over.
no, you can do it on the main stand now, but you might find sitting on. Oh, take it off the stand, whichever you prefer.
Don't know. I need to figure that one out.
Okay.
I'll practice on that. I'll just try it like this, shall I? See what happens. That works. Okay. Cool. There we
It's
go.
actually it's quite low compression, but it holds compression. It doesn't soak away, so it's a good engine. It doesn't smoke at all. It responds nicely. It's got a lovely exhaust note. Now on the handlebars, I've shown you obviously these two controls here,
Yep.
which is fully advanced. Leave that. Then you have got a choke here, and if you did need it, it goes forward. Light switch, pilot light. This is your main light. This is your dip switch. And we have between here two positions, high and low beam. Don't be tempted to go to the top position because on this one it cuts the light out. So suddenly you would have no headlight. I don't think you'll be doing much night riding, but if you are, steering damper doesn't really get altered, doesn't really do a great deal. In the horn, it's there. So that's your dip switch, that's your main light position, that's your side light. It's all quite straightforward. Just remember when you stop your engine, you do need to turn your lights off manually because you've got no ignition switch on here. But yeah, we're going to get you now. Take it off the main stand, just take it around the yard and see what you think.
Take it off its main stand or just go for it?
It's easier to get off the bike rather than... I can take it off for you if you like, but...
Right, there we go. Okay.
But you'll find that so easy to ride.
So we're doing...
So your gears are
one up,
one up and three down. Yeah,
This is it, likely. Okay, when we're going somewhere.
you'll be fine.
Somewhere. This is fun, isn't it?
What we have on here is called a suicide stand, which means the side stand, push it down, if you let it go, it fly back. So when you put it down,
You then have to put
put your
it
foot
on.
over it to bring it over.
I nearly got you in the eye with a lever. Can I press the funky button now?
Yeah, it's Magneto, just press the mag, stop it.
I like that button.
So, what's your first impression?
I like that button.
You like that
That's
button?
a nice bike. It's comfortable, nice, chugs along
It's
nicely.
solid. It's solid,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and I think when you take it on the road, you'll find that actually, you know, for an old
good fun.
bike, it's smooth. The brakes are pretty good. It won't say anything alike performance-wise, but it'll do what it does all day long.
It's probably quite quick compared to that.
Well, I've been behind you actually, and I
That's
know
true.
that goes quite well.
Oh, yeah, okay, good
But
point.
I think you'll enjoy riding this, and with the fuel, we'll talk about the fuel.
Yeah.
By preference, E5, but we know with certain garages you actually can get ethanol-free petrol for it. So I'd advise you, if you can, we'll keep it to
So zero if
zero
possible?
ethanol.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think for find that Shell garages they actually supply high-grade fuel, which
It's
isn't
Esso,
ethanol.
Esso Supreme one. It's
Yeah.
A0. Yeah.
But no, it's good, and I'll say it's everything's okay on it. I've ridden it a few days, and I'm quite happy with it. And I think, yeah, it'd be nice to see you ride it and see what you think of it.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Fun.
get togged up and take it out for a ride.
Yeah.
Oh, when you're not riding it, just
fuel
turn.
off.
Yeah, let's just bring that
Do
back.
go.
If you get a bit low, you can put the other lever on as well.
Yeah, I think in theory my tank's supposed to be like that, only the pipe doesn't quite connect quite properly. So, ooh, suicide.
Yeah, we'll need some more fuel for it sometime. But
Okay.